Welcome to Resiliency Redefined. I'm your host, Robyne, and I am thrilled to share with you information about resiliency, well-being, performance, education, business, parenting, and everything in between. I'm committed to joining you each week to talk about these big ideas and bring them into action, habits, tools, strategies, tactics that allow us to finally uncover what it takes to truly be well. And I'm just so excited that you're here. This episode is not to say my favorite, but let me tell you, it is up there in podcasts I've been able to record before. Today's episode, I'm introducing you to Petra Kolber. And now this woman, like when I grow up, I want to be Petra. So I'm excited to have you part of this conversation. So for those who aren't familiar with Petra, she talks about it better than I can in the episode, but she is just this woman who has gone out, dreamed really big, created these amazing opportunities for herself and lives so authentically and boldly, just really showing up to be of service, to do good work. She's the author of the best-selling book, Perfectionist Detox, like about getting out of the way. As she's telling this very heartfelt story, Memphis, my 5-month-old chocolate lab, decides to jump on the back of the couch in the background like a cat, gets stuck, is pinned behind the couch, but thankfully he's fine. But she navigates some of these social blunders on my end with my puppies, like with the grace of just a true professional. So I'm so glad you're here for this episode. Petra is one of my favorite people to learn alongside with, and I'm so glad that you get to hear our conversation right now on this episode of Resiliency Redefined. I am so very excited for this episode. This was one that I was so excited to share with each and every one of you. And this is somebody you might be familiar with. So I'm excited to tell you all about my friend, somebody I admire. Petra does amazing work, and she's here with me today to talk all the things about maybe reimagining this notion of perfectionism and mindset and infusing joy in what we get to do. So welcome to Resiliency Redefined, Petra. I'm so glad that you're here today.
Thank you, Robyne. It is an absolute pleasure. Being with you brings me joy, so it's
Oh,
already a win.
well, our paths crossed many years ago now. I recall you picking me up. You're my friendly face in Los Angeles. I remember you picking me up and helping me facilitate an opportunity to do some learning. And again, I was just so awe-inspired I had just read your book. And next thing I know, I'm sitting in your car and we are on our way to a location. And there were just so many questions that I wanted to ask, but I didn't want to be like, make you uncomfortable by just like bombarding you with questions. So here it comes a few years later. Now I get to share some questions with you. And before we dive into some of those curiosities, would you just take a moment to tell people who are listening about the good work that you do and the things that you are creating and putting out in the world and who you are? I would love people to get a sense of a snapshot of you from you.
Thank you, Robyne. I mean, this is one of the hardest questions for me
I get that.
because, like, from one day to the next, I am following another, like you just say, a curiosity. What inspires me? And I love new ideas. And my challenge is I have more ideas than I have time to do with them. So right now, I'm always like you. A lot of my work is rooted in mindset,
Yes.
specifically positive psychology. I went back to school at 50, 51 to study with one of the greats, Tal Ben Shahar, on what
Yes.
it really means to live a life where we can flourish and thrive. And I always had this idea of what inspired people, but I couldn't there never seemed to be a science behind it.
Mhm.
And for 30 years prior, I had been in the wellness industry. I
Mhm.
still am to a certain extent,
Yeah.
but I never understood the science of inspiration, the science of motivation, the science of what brings us joy, the science of what brings us alive. And then I suddenly went, oh, there's an actual protocol. There are people who have studied this. And so I think for the past 10 years, if you ask me what I'm doing, depending on what the vehicle is,
Yeah.
whether that's speaking, whether that's in community, whether that's now DJing, it's really about helping people tap into the best parts of themselves, not their perfect parts, but the best part of themselves where they believe in themselves, where they can bet on themselves and then show up in a way that brings not only them joy, but hopefully also inspires the people around them, whether that's their family, whether that's a bigger community, whether that's from the stage, just where they can step into a life where they can live a good day. And at the end of their days, because I now have more years behind me than ahead, we can get to look back on our life, Robyne, and not go, what if I had only tried this? But said, I stepped in, I felt the fear, I did it anyway. Sometimes it worked out great, sometimes it didn't. So, a shorter answer is really I help and try and give people tips and tools to literally tap into the best part of themselves.
Yeah. Preach. Like, oh my gosh, I want you to take us to church. Like, you are literally just feeding my soul with, like, all the things that I would love people to hear more about. And just the fact that you to me, you're a student of life. You have devoted so many years of your own practice, of your own profession, finding again those tips, those strategies, and just amplifying that and making it accessible for people all around the world. So for the work that you do, you shine so bright. And I'm so excited for people to, in my community, to learn more about what you're doing and really to dive into that conversation, especially around those protocols, those process, that this beautiful life that you're describing. Again, not your perfect life, like you're the life that you're enjoying, it doesn't happen by chance. And I often talk about this idea, it happens by choice, that,
Mhm.
a good day is a good day by design. It wasn't just happenstance that, oh, look, all the dominoes happen to fall and they just happen to create a great day. It's something that's very orchestrated. And I would love to learn more about that from you and your perspective about, what does it take to design a good day, let alone a good week, a good month, a good season. Oh my gosh, a big life. What does that look like? What are those ingredients that we want to be thinking about?
Yeah, and I think one of the favorite quotes I've heard is yours,
Oh,
where it is self care isn't selfish, it's science.
yeah.
And so I think it's balancing this idea of living a big life and how do we, whatever that means to you,
Yeah.
because I think sometimes, especially with social media these days, it is sold to us that a big life means you have to change the lives of millions and you've got to have the
Yes.
podcast. And no, it could be changing your own life. It could
Mhm.
be changing the life of your family by living. I always say you learn it to teach it, you live it to preach it. By
Mm,
living, you
I love
bringing
that.
your best self into each day, you're going to inspire your children to do the same. So
Yeah.
there's this, and I straddle this weekly, if not
Yes.
daily, Robyne, this challenge between wanting to live a big life. I
Mhm.
am very ambitious. I'm
Yes.
British. I
Yeah.
can't believe I said that, but I am. That was so frowned upon when I was
Yeah.
growing up. Like, don't dream too big. Don't get too
Mhm.
big for your britches. Don't, the
Yes.
tall poppy syndrome. So I've got
Yeah.
that part of me.
Mhm.
And yet I can also get very overwhelmed very quickly. I can move into the comparison. Is
Yeah.
it too late in a breath? So I
Yeah.
think the key, as unsexy as it is to live a big life for our future is created in the moment.
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
as much as possible when we find ourselves, you want to get excited, yes. And where does that step into the overwhelm? And the way we bring our best selves into each moment is in this moment. It's checking in with which thoughts excite me, which thoughts make me doubt myself, recognizing we can have both can be true. And then in this moment, it's the small moments that lead up to that big life. And I think it's this idea that's very sexy. We
Yeah.
see people having this overnight success and then this
Yes.
perfect thing, and then they step on the stage and they crushed it, and all of a sudden they got the best-selling book. And but what we don't see are those moments, breath by breath, choice by choice, building up that belief that might have taken 2 years, 3 years, 7 years, 10 years to build a big life, whatever that means to us.
Yeah. I love that almost like that map of recognizing these ideas that it's the everyday choices that we plug into, that we pay attention to, that again inspire us, where we're getting our energy from, where are our thoughts kind, where are our thoughts, encouraging, and again recognizing that inner critic. And I know you talk a lot about that in your work, and then recognizing it's that mosaic when all those pieces come together, and then we take out that, be able to take that step back, and we see just the vastness of the fact that there's so much spaciousness for good when we start doing those little things. And I love that that notion of like, yeah, we're so attracted to that like before and after, or that highlight reel of excellence. Yet so often what I think about in this work, it's the behind the scenes, it's the boring stuff, right? It's the stuff that might not be really glamorous or exciting, but it's that consistency and that showing up, and again that boring stuff that sometimes is the ingredient that creates this big beautiful life that we get to do. And again, another thread I would love to pull on is what you said in terms of the upbringing, growing up growing up as a British, as someone from Britain, being able to recognize that we have these cultural influences as well. And I can share with you, relating as a Canadian, where this notion of we're so polite and kind, and it's just kind of, we keep calm, we carry on. Obviously we're a British colony, and it's this idea of stay in your own lane, like know your lane, stay in your lane. And that seems to be the safe place, it's the smart place. And I just really would love to hear your thoughts about when we're reimagining some of these roles or these identities, or even just these things we believe about ourselves to be true. What is your advice or your idea on how do we rewrite some of those narratives, or how do we again co-create different definitions of who we are, what we're about, so we are able to tap into our excellence, our greatness, to our joy?
Yeah, that's so important to know, right, Robin? That
Yeah.
many of these stories weren't even written by us. They were
Yes.
given to us by our culture or the
Yeah.
people we admire. Sometimes that's our family,
Yeah.
sometimes it's not. It could be your peers, a teacher that just said some offhand thing to you when you're really most susceptible as you were
Yes.
growing up.
Mhm.
So for me personally, the first part is like looking at, when we talk about the inner critic, not the thoughts
Yes.
that fuel us. We want to nurture those and make and bring those to the forefront, and not feel that having good thoughts about ourselves and honoring our strengths is a negative.
Yes.
I'll go back first to talk about that part. I'll never forget, Robin, the first time I met Americans. I was 18 and I was dancing, and all of a sudden I heard this person go for your dreams and you need to dream
Yes.
big, Petra. And I was like, what? Who are you? You are unicorns. No one
Yeah.
told me that. I was like, I don't know what this is, but I like it. I've never been around that energy of anything is possible. And so part of it is my culture. Like if you dream too big, or goodness gracious, forget you say that you have a big dream, this false narrative of, well, if I have a big dream, it's going to take away your dream.
That's
So
right.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Or if you grow too fast, that tall poppy, someone is going to cut you down to size. So part of my unlearning, my unraveling of that story was through positive psychology, recognizing that accomplishment and pride are part of the PERMA model of well-being, that
Yes.
pride is actually a really healthy emotion. Where for 20 plus years I was taught, you better not be prideful. That is egoic. So I had that part of me. And then through my peers, my dancing teachers, not my family, who then told me the story of, you're never going to be good enough to make it. So I had those two stories going on. And then fast forward 30 years, I'm then being, not to go into the whole backstory, but I was then worked with Reebok for 10 years,
Yes.
and my career was super successful, and they were calling me a fitness expert. So like, oh my gosh, I had these dueling stories going on in my head. One side saying, oh my gosh, we think you're amazing. Then these deep rooted secret stories of like, you're not good enough. Don't think you're amazing. Or what does that say about you? So the first part is simply noticing
So
and
true.
trying not to judge. Like look at this through the lens of, you do a lot of this in your work, the lens of curiosity versus judgment. Like when I notice these stories coming up, the good ones, oh, that's interesting. Let's celebrate that and keep that. Let's bring that into the future. And then still the stories that I still often have, like, who are you to be doing this? And don't get too big. Then notice, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why that story's still coming up. from the lens of curiosity, and then simply breathing into that. And the first step is awareness. And then who would, this is not my work, but I've heard it, I think it, Byron Katie says, who would you be without this story?
Yes.
And
Yeah,
who
powerful.
is being helped by this story? You know, like, what is this story serving you? And then to a lot of the work that you do, our brain is just trying to protect us.
Yes.
So these stories are just trying to keep us safe. But where in my life are they keeping me safe? And where in my life are they keeping me small? And then beginning to unravel the parts of my stories that are no longer serving me.
Yeah. So beautifully said. And you're absolutely right. I love how you highlighted the piece around we first have to like be aware, and that kind of idea about like catching the thought. And what's so interesting, and one of the things that I see when I'm working with people, Petra, is that it's like when we get to places where we start to feel a wee bit more safe and we feel a little bit more grounded, all of a sudden some of these things start to become more obvious, right? All of a sudden our body is at a place where it's able to release some of those maybe really old stories. And now that we're feeling safer, we all of a sudden be like, oh, okay, so here's this new piece of information that might be guiding us, in the background. And then we invite it into, essentially the front seat to be like, okay, where did this come from? And again, meeting it with that curiosity, and also just seeing how one of the ways that I really like to frame it is that it served a purpose. Like this thought that you carried with you again from 0 to 18, that mindset that was presented to you, it served. Forgive me, Navy just found a squeaking toy. Like, I don't think our noise canceling are going to detect the squeaky toy. Petra, there you go. Navy, how about right now that toy? How about this toy? This one. There you go. Okay, we're gonna there you go. And the part also, I will not edit that out because in the spirit of not having it everything to be perfect, we will welcome Navy's squeaker toy halfway through our podcast. So in case people are wondering, we're at the halfway point with a little Navy interrupt. Sorry, to get back on track. The piece around the fact that those stories serve a purpose for a time. So from 0 to 18, it sets you up in terms of your skills and your gifts and your talents. And again, it helps shape who you are at that point. And then you have this opportunity where all of a sudden there's a whole new narrative that you get to be exposed to with coming to the United States, dream big, and just like all that excitement and energy. And then that starts to shape your story. And then we get to these other beautiful places of evolution where we get to kind of pick and choose what parts we want to keep bringing along with us for the ride, and which ones we can say, oh, this is your bus stop. Thanks. I appreciate how far you got me. And this is your stop, especially when it comes to perhaps some of those inner critic voices. And Petra, I'm curious for people who are listening and they say, okay, Robyne, my negative self-talk is pretty loud or it's pretty hard. It feels like, it has such a grip. I won't be able to shake it. Again, I love that you said awareness. I love that you said breath work, right? Like breathing into that part. Are there any other ideas or suggestions for people who think that, gosh, I'm not very kind to myself, Petra? Like, how do I start to reimagine that relationship with myself? Maybe it's based on my appearance, it's based on my skills, it's based on all sorts of factors. Where do we even start?
Mm, that is such a good question. The first thing I'd say to your listeners is just know you're not alone. I there's very few people that I know that don't have that voice at some point. So I think the first thing is to know it's not that you're not going to have that voice. It's not a bad thing. It's part of our nature. You know, it's part of that negativity bias. Our brain is designed to focus on all the things that could hurt us. And so the inner critic, while it might not go away, the question is, what are you going to do when the next time it shows up? And I think it's this idea of the difference between ruminating and reflection.
Oh, I love
Can
that.
you look at the parts? Can you reflect through the lens of curiosity and kindness and self compassion, not letting yourself off the hook, but through the lens of facts versus feelings? Put your
Yes.
feelings aside for now. The facts of, first of all, I'm going to ask you to say to yourself, which parts of your life does the inner critic show up the most? It's not going to be in all parts of your life. It could be your appearance, which is a challenging one for so many of us with social media. It
Yeah.
could be your work. It could be your relationships. But where is it the loudest? And then can you look at it through the lens of reflection? Meaning, when we ruminate, we just notice this thought and it just runs over and over and over on repeat, and we just don't do anything about it. But then simply asking a question, I don't know if this is a great question, but what is this thought trying to keep me safe from?
I love that question.
What is my inner critic trying to help me with?
Yeah,
And then from that place of curiosity, while it might not stop the thought right away, it begins to open up a gap, is a separation between you and the thoughts. So you
totally.
are not the thought, you are having a thought. And that could be another step. Instead of going, um, let me think of one. I don't like the way I look. Then the next step would be, oh, I'm having a thought that I
About
don't like the way that I look. And then that begins to separate. It gives us a little bit of room, just a little bit of a gap to go, oh, I am not my thought. I am having this thought. So that's one part of it. And then the second part I'd say right away is, what do you know to be true?
mm,
That is true and good about you, your strengths, your kindness, your curiosity. What would other people say to you? What would a best friend
mhm.
highlight about you? And so it's not that we're never not going to have an inner critic,
Yeah,
but what are the tools that we can bring to that voice? What is the kind of approach we can have to this inner critic? Because I think the minute we feel like we need to shut it down or it's such a negative part of us, it actually gives us more power. So
yes,
don't push it away. Just kind of invite it to the table. Like you had
yeah,
said,
yeah.
it's going to have a seat right now beside you. Then it's going to go to the back seat. And then eventually you can drop it off. Like Robert
Mhm.
said, you could
Yeah.
say, you're going to leave the
Yeah,
car right now.
yeah,
And also know there's no perfect way to do this. There's going to be days when you're going to be able to have a more compassionate conversation with yourself. And there's going to be days when it just feels overwhelming. And in those moments, my simple invitation would be, if you can, get outside into nature for 10
yeah,
minutes and take a walk. Because that is one of the best medicines for pretty much any problem that we are facing. The worst place for our inner critic is sitting. So stand up, take a walk, get outside into nature. And somehow, my guess is in 5 to 10 minutes, everything's going to see a little bit brighter.
yeah. There is so much packed in there where I'm just like, "Yes, yes, Petra, yes." Like, keep talking. Like, you're absolutely right. And, so many pieces about that notion that we often talk in my work about, like, we repeat what we don't repair. And so instead
Mm,
of looking at that and being like, "Oh, here I am again," it's like, "Hey, I notice I'm here again. Okay, so this seems like a frequent stop or a frequent reality or a frequent place. So, okay, clearly there's a reason to be here. There's some learning that needs to happen or some unlearning, as you said. And that other piece about recognizing that we are the thinker, not the thought. And that just gives us so much more agency to be able to show up in a way that could maybe serve us in a way that's a bit more gentler and a bit kinder, versus again just the harshness of that inner critic. And a very dear colleague of mine, his name is Dr. James Rouse. He has this expression, Petra, when, if I use it often. So if I notice that I'm being a bit critical of something, Dr. James would say, Robin, you need to look at yourself with softer eyes.
mm,
Look at yourself with softer eyes, because the eyes that I'm looking at you with see effort. It sees somebody who, yeah, is navigating something pretty complex, yet you're still willing to show up. So, look at yourself through softer eyes. And again, I appreciate how you brought in that piece about, social media and comparison, because that often is a very sharp lens. That sharp lens of, it seems like everybody else has it figured out, or everybody else is ahead of me in this journey. And again, just that idea of that slowing down a wee bit, take the breath, and when all else fails, a walk. And I love that you brought that in. And there's just so much research from a physiological perspective and a psychological perspective about how taking some of our worries for a walk or taking our inner critics for a walk is absolutely the best medicine. So thank you for bringing that forward. I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah. Now, Petra, my question for you as well, as somebody who is, gone, to me, it's this beautiful evolution of, that you're, again, a student of life. You are learning, you are growing, you are sharing, you are also DJing. Like, talk about like a touch on, like, you're pretty much the coolest person I've ever met. like, tell me more about this idea around, like, play and joy, and yes, like, I just so often I'll hear people share with me, like, "Robyne, I just don't have time for those things," and I'm like, "Oh, if you don't have time for it, that's when you need it the most," right? Like, if you feel like I don't have time for play and creativity and joy, like, sister, that's when you need it. So, like, let's
Yeah.
go find you some. So please tell me a little bit about your thoughts around that joy piece and play and, trying new things and music, all the things that you've tapped into so beautifully.
I think, well, for me, Robin, what really helps, and I think might help for your listeners too,
Yeah.
when you get social accountability for your
Yes.
play, it tends to make you show up because, like you
Totally.
said, there's always something else we could be doing.
Yeah.
But and to a lot of your work, play is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves.
Mhm.
We drop into this flow state where
Yes.
our anxieties disappear, our worries disappear. So even in play, you're actually doing work because you're
Yeah.
allowing yourself to
Yeah.
like reset, let your worries go
Yeah.
away. And for me, I'm very blessed in the fact that what I do for a living and what allows me to play are very similar.
Yes.
What happened is I had just released my book. The day of my book launch, someone said, "So what's next?" I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I just released a book. Can we
Yeah.
just have a little break here?"
Yeah.
And I just casually mentioned, "Oh, I've always wanted to DJ." And I would have probably have always had the next step not
Yeah.
happened, you could have asked me today, what is something you would like to do that you haven't done yet? It probably would be, I've always wanted to DJ. So, but in that room, so I casually mentioned something I was curious about. Two people came up to me right away, and one was one of the biggest thought leaders in the fitness space
Yeah.
who ran the biggest fitness convention. And she goes, "How serious are you about DJing?" So I'm thinking low stakes.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something I've thought about. She says, "Okay, next year, a year from now, you're going to DJ a VIP party for 500 people."
Yes. Yes, Petra.
So,
Yes, you are.
I'm thinking a year from now, sure, okay. And then another couple of friends of mine who were DJ said, "Just don't do anything yet." Next day on my doorstep, there was the DJ equipment.
Yeah.
So for me, having this dream kind of also had a little bit of social accountability really elevated it. So I'd
Yeah.
encourage actually anyone that's there's that one thing that you've been wanting to do, whether it's writing or a book or planting a vegetable garden or
Yeah.
going to Europe on your own, put a little bit of social accountability out there. So there's a little bit of stakes in the game because we'll do that with our traditional goals. Why not do that with your play goals also?
Yeah.
So that's really, and then for me, DJing is one of the things that drops me into flow because
Of
it's
course.
still
Yeah.
challenging, but
Yeah.
it's something that I love and I can always up level my skills. And then of course, me being me, like, what can I do next? So my keynote for 2026 is literally how to lead like a DJ.
Oh, that's so
So,
cool. Yeah.
well, cool or crazy, one of the two.
All of it. The
But
line is
cool
very
is
is
fun.
yeah, I love that. Petra, that you've given us, like, literally a blueprint of, again, be aware, right? We're gonna do some breath, we're gonna be aware, we're going to, like, show up bravely even in some of that uncertainty, and I love that piece about, like, putting it out there, and again, I have lots of mixed feelings right now where, about, like, people are like, "Oh, you have to manifest it." It's like, "No, you still have to do the work." Like, folks, like, you like, put it out there, but back it up with something, right? And I love that by putting out there that, "Hey, I have this, like, this wish and or this curiosity about DJing." And then again, you put it in a place where again, there's movers and shakers around you, right? And people want people to succeed. And I believe people want to help, right? So when you cast a wish out there, I believe that is, all of it working for the good of everybody. And I love that for you. That is going to be like just I can't even imagine how cool that keynote is going to be. I want to see that someday and be in the audience to cheer out loud for you because that will be so useful for so many people to reimagine what that looks like for them.
Yeah, and I did that too when I knew I wanted to go to Europe and travel
Yeah.
on my own for 10 months. I started on podcasts like this. People say, "What's next?" And I say, "Oh, I'm going to go to Europe for 10 months." I hadn't actually planned it yet and I really
Yes.
hadn't committed to it. But the more again, I'm like you, affirmations are great, manifestations are great, but the thing that really does anything is action. And
Action.
I
Yes.
do have an ego that if enough people are going, "Oh, I've heard you're going to go to Europe for 10 months," I'm like, okay, so I'm going to do it. So
Yeah.
again, like oftentimes we won't show up for ourselves, but we'll show up for others. So again, I'm
100%.
not saying that you have to have stakes like that. You have to go to Europe for 10
Yeah.
months or DJ, but almost like believe it to be true and then meet yourself there. Once we
Yeah.
start saying it, then things will start to fall into place, or people that could help you
Yeah.
bring this dream or this joy goal or this play goal will often start showing up. And it could be someone that you've known for years that you didn't, there's a mutual thing that they could help you with
Yeah.
that just, they just didn't know that was something you're interested in.
Yeah. Oh, I echo that sentiment so much about, again, people wanna help and people, like, want to cheer each other on, and when you know, say like, "Oh, I wanna do this," like, it's shocking. There's so many, like, interconnections that we don't even know about because we're always talking about, like, the work or, focusing on the transaction, that sometimes we miss some of that side conversation about really getting to know people and to be able to see what's possible. And I love that it's this idea of you put it out there and then you action it. And also to it's okay to want things. Especially
Yes.
as women, I often let women when I'm working with them just let them know it's like it's okay if you want more. You can be satisfied and grateful with what you have. And the dual truth is you can also want big, better, and more. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like we're allowed to strive. And it's interesting sometimes when I want to keep that little ego as my amigo, right? Keep it in check. Sometimes I like bounce things off of my own teenagers. And I have two boys and a daughter. And sometimes I'll say like, "Hey Hunter, what are your thoughts on this?" And then I get the perspective of a 21-year-old who has, lots of privilege as a dude. Like he's got lots of this privilege and he's like, "Yeah, sounds great." Like he would never pause to be like, "Well, don't you think you're asking for a little much there, mom?" Like, like that's not even in his psyche, right? So being able to bounce ideas off people who are really like, like that kindling for those dreams to set ablaze, I think is so important. And you do that so beautifully in all of the facets of your life, both personally and professionally, which is very admirable. I think that's so amazing to hear.
I just want to underscore what you said, Robin, because I think it's so important. It's like you can be grateful and very happy and still want more. It's the
Yes.
land of and. It's not
Yes.
I'm grateful or I want more. You can have both. I think
Yeah.
that's really important because it took me a long time to recognize that one doesn't outcast the other. They can both things can be true at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to me, that's this beautiful bridge to kind of bring our conversation full circle about, your upbringing and where you were in middlehood, where all of a sudden it was like, hey, make sure to stay small. And then here it's like, get as big and bright as you can. That bridge of those dual truths that we can, again, be here and appreciate what's around us and stay in our lane. And we also can be open to just the greatness and the expansiveness of possibility. And it's, the other part I often reflect on, there's so much spaciousness in our dreams, in our actions, and the habits that we can do that can, again, by design, create some of these opportunities, which is pretty special, I think, about a thing that we get to do with our own reinventions. So thank you for sharing that. Now, Petra, in the spirit of keeping with a wee bit of a tradition on Resiliency Redefined, we tend to ask the previous guest to leave a question for our next guest. And so, if you're open, a person did leave a question in the queue, and I would love to present it to you. There's no pressure, but are you open to maybe stick handling a question I might send your way?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. So let me just pull it up here. And so the question that was left is thinking about, sometimes that there are these misconceptions about us. The question was, can you think about a common misconception somebody might have about you? And can you tell us a time or an opportunity to make that correction? So, can you tell us about maybe a misconception, especially coming from the fitness industry? I can only imagine there's several these misconceptions sometimes people have about us, and maybe or maybe not, that is the case.
Mm. Ooh, I think a big one, Robin, for me, uh, there was a misconception for many years that I had it all perfectly figured out.
You figured it out.
That I
Yes.
was the perfect fitness
Yes.
celebrity. I was
Yes.
always happy. I always I had it dialed in.
Yeah.
And the chance I had to basically fix that misconception
Yeah.
was through my book and my work.
Yes.
When I realized actually I'm the furthest from that.
Yeah.
I am a I was a ball of nerves and anxiety and
Yeah.
panic attacks every time I stepped on that
Yeah.
stage because what I thought they thought of me being perfect, I thought I had to show up that way.
Yeah.
And in reality, what it was doing, what the thing I wanted more than anything was to connect with my audience. But no one connects with perfect.
Exactly. Oh, beautifully said.
And
Yes.
so when I had that realization, I felt it okay to share the
Yeah.
fact that, I also have anxiety and I've also had panic attacks. And then the minute I spoke it, along with therapy, don't get me wrong,
Yeah. Oh, I get that.
I began to be able to work through that process. But it was this misconception that I thought that they thought I was perfect. And then I thought that I needed to be perfect. So that was the misconception. And then because of that, I wrote the book, The Perfection Detox.
Yeah.
So it all served a purpose in the end.
Yeah, as it always does. Sometimes those setbacks are setups, right? Setups for this big opportunity. Thank you for sharing that. And if you hadn't have a chance to pick up a copy of The Perfectionist Detox, I wish it was required reading for anyone who has ever gone out into the world, right? Like anyone who has ever fallen into that trap of social comparison, anyone who's fallen into some of those traps of just how we talk about success. Oh my gosh, to me, this is a balm for weary souls that are just looking to like show up and do the best they can. And that is enough, right? Showing up is enough right now. And again, thank you for putting that work into the world. Again, I wish it was required reading for everybody, Petra. You are such a shining example of just all things being done with such heart and so intentional for the greater good. So thank you, thank you, thank you for spending time with me in this conversation, for, again, the wisdom bombs that you are dropping right, left, and center. I feel like this is an episode we'll want to go back to. I hope we can invite you again on the podcast in the future. And thank you so much for the work you do. And again, for the gift of your time and wisdom and sharing it with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending time with this podcast episode today. I hope you found something helpful in Resiliency Redefined. Please feel free to share it with somebody who you might think could benefit. Maybe there was something useful, something in particular that you think you could pay forward. Also, if you have a moment, please feel free to rate and review this podcast wherever you like to listen to your podcast. It means the world to me. And again, thanks for your time. Thank you for your interest. Take good care, and I'll see you next time.